I don't know if I've told this story before, but I had this. I remember years ago, Jeremy and I were visiting friends in Byron, and everyone was sort of all. Is it a titter or a Twitter? When everyone's all talking, is it a Twitter or a titter? A Twitter. Everyone was all a Twitter. Everyone was a lot titter. Everyone was talking about this dude who was like a local boy made good. He was some Byron musician. He'd gone to the States. He'd got a record deal. He was now writing songs for big artists and stuff. And so he was now back in town. And all the girls were hanging out with were like, oh, so-and-so's back in town. So-and-so's back in town. And they were just like talking him up. And so he arrives at this party and he was like every bit that kind of Byron hipster, He turns up in jeans and an unbuttoned denim shirt, barefoot, with like a felt cap with a feather in it, big beard. And I'm like, okay, cool. And again, that like thing in me is like, oh man, I'm not cool enough to talk to this guy. Like, we're not going to get along because he's really cool and I look like an undercover cop. And all the girls were just like falling over themselves, like, because, he was, making hits in LA and, blah, blah, blah. And so we start talking and straight away, we're not getting on. Like, he does not like the cut of my jib, and I think he's a bit of a pretentious twat. Like, it's just,
He thinks
you could not find.
He senses an arc, and he's probably carrying.
Yeah.
He's like real sus on you. He's probably got like 8 grams under his big felt hat.
Well, I was hanging out with like probably 8 girls. It was 8 girls and me. So me and Jem and like 7 of our friends. And then he turns up, and it's like, oh, there's another rooster in the hen house, and he didn't like that. He probably
there was a lot of hens.
Yeah, a lot of hens, and so but he
the
wanted
rooster was already spoken for by one of the hens.
Yeah, didn't matter. He didn't. He wanted to make sure that this rooster was going to be
8 hens, man. Like that's one ewe and 8 hens. That is more hens than you can.
But
handle,
if you are a super,
you can't handle the truth.
It was too hot to handle. He was, but I think he was a super alpha. Like he was a super alpha rooster, and it wasn't enough for him to have all the attention. He had to make sure that the other rooster was completely subjugated. Like he had to humiliate
it was a cock
me.
and a cuck. You're saying?
Yes, he needed to cuck me big time.
Yeah.
So it was just like little comments throughout the day, just little things to undermine. Because I, as you know, Will, have a fairly self-deprecating wit, and so in the right company, that's taken well and everyone laughs. In the wrong hands, they take that self-deprecation and they reinforce it. They'll double down on the thing that you just said that's bad about yourself.
It's bad manners. Like that
Don't you reckon?
That's just a bad joke. Like, don't you understand social mores? Like, if someone is being self-deprecating, that's not an open invitation to jump on in.
No, but it's a good way to cuck another rooster in the hen house.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. You've just basically waddled up to him and revealed your insecurities and said, "There you go. What can you do with
free
that?"
peck? Like if it was a cockfight, I've just given him the razor to strap to his claw.
But
just have at
literally,
it.
didn't protect. You didn't even make him go to the effort of working out what your soft spots were. You just sidled up and presented them.
Hey, have you seen my tiny hands? Look at this. I've got small ears. Sometimes I talk too much. I get nervous. So he sizes me up, and so there's a few comments, and it gets to the point where I think we went to a bar, came back to this house, and I was, by the end of it, I'm like, all right, I'm not enjoying this. So he was like, charming all the girls with his stories of celebrities he knows in LA in one room, and so I go into the other room, and in the other room, there were these baby, literally chicks, like baby chickens were in one of the rooms under a sun lamp. You know how they, catch them. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there like looking at these hens, and so I start getting curious about like, oh, how do you hatch a chick? And then what's the point for me? So I start reading on my iPhone like the whole thing about, because I'm a fucking nerd.
But also you have been well and truly cucked. This is what we're seeing is a man who went in, these chickens could be my friends. I'm going to learn about them.
So it was. So like, all the girls, including my wife, my future wife, are in there like chatting to this dude, and I'm with the chicks, literally being cucked with some cucks.
You're literally like, we've both got a posse of chicks, man. Like whatever. Who hasn't got heaps of chicks around him?
Now I can't remember what the factoid was that I found out, but it was some bit of trivia about chickens or chicks, that the equivalent of like, pigs can't look up or something like that. So I have tuned out to the conversation in the next room. But what I have heard, and I didn't really pick up on this, is he had started playing the piano. Obviously, one of the girls has been like, play us one of your new songs. They're like, well, since you asked nicely, here's something I've been working. I wrote this when I was hanging out with Chris and Gwyneth, and some fucking shit like that, right?
Or you've been in the other room for who knows how long because you've blacked out, like trying to learn about the cycle of chickens, and then he has just gone, well, this is my opportunity now. Does anyone have a piano?
Definitely. That's what he was like. He was taking it up a notch to find out which of the hens he was going to be going home with that night. Maybe multiple hens, who knows? Yeah. So he's playing the piano, and I am so oblivious to that and so like enamored with this fact I've just found about chickens that I just go walking right into the room, loudly reading from my phone. Did you know that like the average standard of a chicken? And like stop because he stops playing the piano. I look up and he's staring like daggers at me mid ballad, like 7 girls on the floor, like looking up at him like dreamily.
Oh my God.
And he just stares at me and I'm like, sorry, bad time. I'll wait till you finish the song. I'll come back. Oh, so I go back and I'm like, oh God. And then that finishes up, and then one of the girls is like, "Oh, there's a beach party happening down at Cozy Corner. If you guys want to go," and so everyone's like,
Charlie.
"Yeah."
No Charlies.
So we go, "Oh, well, how are we going to get down there? There's 7 of us," and he's going, "Well, I've got my ute because of course he drives a fucking ute."
No.
And he's like, "So I can take like 3 girls in the front." It was a twin cab ute, so he could take pretty much all the girls in the front, and I had to get in the tray. We drove to the beach party with me in the tray, just like bumping over all the fucking speed bumps.
My dog is called Charlie. This is how well I'm doing. Do you see that dude? He's doing pretty well in LA. His dog is a human pretending to be a dog.
But then the weird thing was, and I'll never forget this, we got to the party. Well, it's not the weird thing, but it's something that I've ruminated over and I haven't quite got to what the insult was. Because we get to the party, open the door, all the girls spill out, they start going down the beach path to the dance party. And so it's just me and him closing up the tray. And he says to me, "Did you grow up in the city?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, I could tell." And then walked off. And I was like, I'm a city boy? Is that not acceptable to be? I mean, aren't there cool people from the city? He's just been living in fucking LA. That's a giant metropolis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a city. There is no. You're screaming now into an empty void because he's gone. But you finally thought of a comeback. You're like, hang on.
It's been 10 years. To see the full video, join our Patreon.
Patreon.com/TOFOP.